How to stain concrete floors. Stains are an easy way to improve the appearance of an otherwise drab concrete floor. You'll need to patch and prepare the concrete before applying the stain. Afterward, you'll also need to apply some type of sealer to protect the newly stained surface. Part 1. Prepare the concrete floor. 1. Smooth the surface. Work across the floor using a sander, mechanical buffer, or floor grinder equipped with diamond bits. Focus on areas covered by visible imperfections. This may not be necessary if the concrete floor is relatively new, but you'll need to follow this step if the concrete has any paint stains or similar spots on it. Likewise, if you removed tile flooring from the concrete before starting, you'll need to use a floor grinder to remove any stubborn bits of mortar from the floor. 2. Repair any cracks. Check the floor for any divots or deep cracks. Fill in these areas using pre-mixed concrete patching. Unless the floor has been severely damaged, you'll only need a small bucket of pre-mixed patch. Scoop a small amount of patch onto a blunt trowel, then slather the patch directly over the crack in your concrete. Use the edge of the trowel to smooth the patch into the crack. Continue smoothing the patch until it lies flush with the rest of the floor. Allow the patch to set before continuing. 3. Vacuum the floor. Work across the entire concrete floor with a shop vac. Pick up as much solid debris as possible. If you don't have a shop vac, pick up the largest pieces of debris using a heavy broom and dustpan. Follow up with a standard vacuum cleaner to pick up smaller dust bunnies and particles. 4. Scrub the floor clean. Prepare a bucket of soapy water, then use a mop or rag to wash the floor. Allow the surface to dry completely before continuing. Neutral floor cleaner works best, but an all-purpose cleaner can be used as well. If the floor seems especially oily, you may need to use a degreaser instead of a standard floor cleanser. 5. Consider etching the floor. Some stains work better if you chemically etch the floor before application. Doing so creates small imperfections in the concrete, making it easier for the stain to sink in. Check the stain label before etching the floor. Even though some stains do require this step, others advise against it. If you purchased a concrete stain kit, the etching chemical might be included. Follow the instructions to mix and apply the chemical. If an etching chemical has not been included, use TSP, trisodium phosphate. Combine 1 cup, 250 milliliters, TSP with 3 quarts, 3L, warm water. Scrub the floor using this solution and a rigid floor brush, then allow the concrete to dry before continuing. 6. Tape off the area. Cover the bottom perimeter of the wall with painter's tape. You should also use tape on any areas of concrete you do not wish to stain. Concrete stain can be very difficult to remove. If it does accidentally coat an area you do not wish to stain, you will likely need to paint over that area to hide the mistake. Part 2. Apply the stain. 1. Mix the stain. Combine 1 part stain with 1 part water inside an all-plastic pump sprayer. Follow the package instructions on the stain while mixing it. This ratio is fairly common, but some types of stain may require slightly different proportions. Stain kits will usually have pre-measured proportions for you to use. Concrete stain is best applied with a pump sprayer. If you choose to apply it with a roller or brush, however, you'll need to mix the stain in a plastic bucket. 2. Work from back to front. Regardless of how you apply the stain, you'll need to work from the back of the room to the front. Start at the corner furthest away from the door and gradually move toward the doorway. If you don't apply the stain in this manner, you'll need to walk across the concrete before the stain can dry. Doing so can ruin both the stain and your shoes. 3. Spray the stain using random motions. Apply the stain to the floor in a continuous spray. Make random motions with the spray wand to prevent any lines from developing. If you choose to apply the stain with a brush or roller, consider working in fan-shaped strokes to help prevent lines from developing. Overlap each previously stained area as you apply more stain to further prevent these lines. No matter how you choose to apply the stain, only apply enough to just barely cover the floor. Do not allow puddles of stain to form on the concrete. 4. Spread the stain. Use a heavy shop broom to spread the wet stain over the concrete floor. Try to spread it evenly so that no area seems notably darker or lighter. Alternatively, use a rag to spread the stain instead of a broom. Doing so may prevent bristle marks from showing up in the stain. Work the rag and applied stain around the floor using circular motions. 5. Let dry. Allow the first coat of stain to dry before testing the color or applying additional coats. The color will look different after it dries. Typically, you'll need to wait roughly 90 minutes in between coats. Check the product label for more precise drying guidelines, however. 6. Test the color. Apply a small amount of water over the dried stain. Doing so will give you an idea of how the stain should look after you apply the sealer. Dry the water quickly after you check the color. Note that the dry stain will look much more faded than the finished product, which is why you should test the color in this manner before determining whether or not you'll need to apply additional coats. 7. Apply additional coats as needed. If the stain is too light or if you can see application lines, you may need to apply 1 or 2 additional coats. Mix the stain and apply it in the same manner as before. Apply each color in the opposite direction to help minimize the appearance of stroke lines. Check the color after each coat to determine whether or not additional coats are still needed. Part 3. Seal the stain. 1. Allow the stain to dry completely. The stain must be given enough time to dry and set properly. You may need to wait as long as 12 to 24 hours. Since each stain requires a different amount of time, you'll need to consult the product label for more precise instructions. Even if the floor appears dry, the chemical reaction caused by the stain will continue until you wash the floor. Giving the stain enough time to set will help you to achieve the best possible result from this reaction. 2. Clean the floor. Prepare a solution of all-purpose cleanser and water. Scrub the floor with this solution, then allow the concrete to dry. Check the label instructions for your stain. For some stains, you may need to add baking soda to the solution to help neutralize the chemical reaction. If the area is too wet after you wash it, you can mop up some of the excess water with a dry rag or dry, wet shop vac. 3. Apply the sealer using a roller brush. Pour an appropriate sealer into a paint tray, then work the sealer over the stained concrete floor using a low, nap roller brush. For best results, use a sealer recommended by the manufacturer of your particular stain. Indoor concrete floors are typically sealed with wax, but in high-traffic areas, urethane-coated epoxy sealers might work better. Regardless of the sealer you use, you should apply it to the floor in thin coats. Allow the sealer to dry completely in between separate coats. 4. Wait several days before use. Wait at least 1 to 2 days before removing the painter's tape and using the floor. The sealer must cure completely before you walk across the floor or move furniture onto it. Check the sealer label for more precise instructions on curing time. Once the sealer cures, the process is complete and the floor should be ready to use. Warnings. Protect yourself as you work by wearing disposable gloves, safety goggles, and a dust mask. You should wear this safety gear as you clean the floor, apply the stain, and apply the sealer. Things: sander or mechanical buffer or floor grinder. Pre-mixed concrete patching. Blunt trowel. Shop vac. Plastic buckets. Rags. Water. Floor cleaner or all-purpose cleanser. TSP. Floor brush. Painter's tape. Concrete stain. Plastic pump sprayer. Heavy shop broom. Sealer. Roller brush. Paint tray.